Thank you. Well, you know, in my defense, Nicolas Cage doesn't know who I am either. So, good morning, everyone, or good afternoon. I am suffering from jet lag. I don't know what time it is, and that's really ironic to me because I'm here to talk to you about time, and specifically the ways different people and cultures relate to time and how that impacts our working relationships. How time is perceived in different cultures or even between different people can cause conflict. Often we will have miscommunications about when something will happen. I refer to this as the monochronic versus polychronic dichotomy. By understanding how our coworkers and team members view time, we can adjust our own expectations and our working relationships and reduce unnecessary conflict. Over the next few minutes, I'm going to ask you to think about your own relationship with time and how that might impact your relationships with your team members. And with this understanding, we're going to build a better communication and reduce friction with our teams. I'm Lisa Hegeman. I'm an engineering manager at NS1. We're going to be discussing relationships with time, and with that, I want to define a few terms. We're going to talk about recognizing those time relationships and how we can build better teams with this understanding of chronemic differences. So, chronemics. Academically, this is the study of the human tempo as it relates to human communication, and especially nonverbal communication. The way we perceive time, structure our time, react to time is a powerful communication tool, and it helps set the stage for communication processes. The terms monochronic time and polychronic time were first introduced to us by Edward Hall in his book, The Silent Language, which he published in 1959. It's kind of an old study. He was describing, as an anthropologist, cultures, not individuals. But much of the concepts do relate to individuals also. A monochronic culture will schedule events one at a time in very sequential order. Monochronic time and cultures will accentuate agendas, precise computation, and punctuality. Time is seen as a distinct product, something of value. We've actually heard that mentioned a number of times here this week. Polychronic people think of time and they relate to time much differently. They have a different concept of time. It is much more linear. It flows. Many things can be done at once, and the emphasis is not on quantifying the time, but on completing tasks. So the notable differences are that a monochronic culture values schedules, while polychronic cultures value the interpersonal relationships. Monochronic cultures, as you can imagine, are more of our Western cultures, North America, Northern Europe, and our polychronic cultures are our South American countries, African countries, and many of our countries in Asia. But even within cultures, there can be subcultures that are different, and people have their own sense of time. So let's talk about recognizing polychronic and monochronic time. I'm going to flash a few images. So how does this make you feel? We're looking at a project plan, and that's my calendar from last week. Here we have the logos of a number of video conferencing or multi-communication chat tools that have become ubiquitous in our work lives. Now, thinking about those previous two slides, did you have a strong reaction to one or to the other? Maybe a positive reaction or a negative reaction? This could be telling as to your own polychronic or monochronic tendencies. Zoom fatigue is something that has been discussed pretty heavily since the start of the pandemic and the move to dispersed teams. I want to think about it through the lens of chronemics. When we have a very highly structured day with back-to-back meetings that have very concise start and end times, that to a polychron can be exhausting because it knocks them out of their natural rhythm. To a monochron, having multiple Slack channels, a lot of concurrent threads can also be exhausting. Jumping between topics and tasks without ever being able to bring one to completion, that's really frustrating. But video meetings and multimedia chat tools are part of our work patterns now. But understanding our relationship with time and our teammates' relationships with time, we can better utilize these communication channels. Polychrons prefer to keep their time unstructured, changing from one activity to the next as the mood sees fit. Although polychrons can, will, and do hit their deadlines, they want to do it on their own terms. A polychron does not want to have detailed plans imposed upon them, nor do they want to be forced into creating their own detailed plans. They want to work without a strict schedule, following their own internal mental processes from one moment to the next. Monochrons relate to time very, very differently. To them, time is discrete, it is not continuous. Monochrons see time in very distinct blocks: days, weeks, quarters. These are temporal blocks that can be organized, quantified, and scheduled. Monochrons love to plan in detail, making lists, keeping track of their activities, and organizing their time into a daily routine. Let's not conflate the characteristics of poly or monochronic cultures with our own cultural perception of time. I would argue that multitasking is not necessarily polychronic, despite the idea of doing many things at the same time. This is about your relationship and why that is happening. If your thought process is, time is money, I can't waste my time, or I have to have A, B, and C done by X o'clock, you're living in a monochronic world, my friend. Being hyper-focused on a problem is not necessarily monochronic. As engineering leaders, we always want to block off time for our engineers to focus on a task. But that task might have multiple problems, many paths to explore. Needing to focus to solve a problem is very different from adhering to a rigid schedule of focusing on doing one thing and one task at a certain time. Again, it's about how we relate to time, not how we use it. So now that we've gone over the basics of chronetic differences, how can we build better teams with this information? First, let's start by recognizing in ourselves our own chronemic traits. By doing that, we can help adjust our expectations. It's not all or nothing. Not every project needs to be completely planned out. Sometimes there are ones that can work in a very polychronic way. In this ways, monochrons can just adjust their expectations to reduce friction. Other times, there's going to be a project or a setting that requires very strict adherence to a pattern, and the polychron is going to have to be uncomfortable working within time constraints. As with anything, we want to avoid generalizing. The concepts I've been talking to you about were first introduced around cultures, but we deal with individuals every single day. So when observing actions or behaviors in the context of time and time management, try not to view them through your own cultural lens. Don't assume that our own cultural approach is the natural way of doing things. Polychronic cultures, or subcultures within a monochronic world, are not lazy or disrespectful. And monochronic cultures are not cold or disengaged. Asynchronous work. This has become a very popular discussion, especially with our wider distributed teams since the pandemic. Working asynchronously, but within a set of agreed guidelines, can work best for both our polychron and monochron team members. The polychron is free to move between project work or responding to a request for comment on a document or hopping onto a video chat when a conversation needs to occur. The monochron can organize their day into chunks of effort and tasks that they want to get accomplished that day. Monochrons might be more inclined to schedule a meeting with someone, and that's all right if we've embraced asynchronous working and reduced the number of recurring meetings that happen over the course of a week. And finally, like anything else, let's fit to the task. The strengths of different chromatic ways should be considered when assigning tasks. Let's face it, you don't want your polychron doing your project planning. Surprisingly, I'm out of time, so I want you to understand relationships with time and how that can help improve team relationships. Keep chromatic differences in mind when you're thinking about team dynamics, and all of this will help us build better communication and reduce friction within our teams. Thank you.